Hi, everyone, and welcome to Friday Spiritual Advocacy. Welcome home. Home is supposed to be a place where we feel safe, we feel heard, we feel like we can freely say anything and there won't be judgment. Right? That is very hard to create within oneself, let alone as a parent. I have been so looking forward to this time to talk to my oldest son, Diego. He has 4 weeks off from school, and 2 weeks have just flown by, and there's another 2 weeks. And this is awkward for him, for us, to just be openly talking about the tools that we use to manifest what hopefully is a safe sense of a home. So this week's theme has been finding words for healing, has been clear self-expression, has been having the guts to say just 3 words that can change life forever, of putting things down in writing, to just put them down in writing so that maybe your loved ones can find them one day when you have passed. Getting on to what is the best thing ever. My son Diego is here with me in my home, in our home, and will be joining us now. And I'm just going to dive right in and play this by ear because he is the one that is going. There he is.
Hi, can you hear me all right?
Hi. Yeah, we had a little technical difficulty earlier. So we were talking about, the awkwardness of going live social media. And it is weird. I need to express that when you did this twice before, that the comments that I received about how it had helped somebody was tremendous. And I feel like when we're put on the spot like this, that it helps to find the words to the feelings. This week's theme has been about, the power of words and writing to heal ourselves and to heal others. And so I'm just going to put it out there, like, you can't safely express yourself to a person unless you have felt in the past that they hear you, that they genuinely try to see you. And so I want to ask you, first of all, what do you want to talk
This is a
about?
pretty interesting topic.
Okay, so feeling heard. What is it to be heard, to be seen? And as parents, like, wow, I wish we had an instruction manual, from the beginning. But what is it to you to feel heard?
To me, and I think this applies in and out of relationships, parental, family relationships, but also with friends. To be seen and to be heard is to have some sort of reciprocation, right? Some sort of interest, some sort of bounce back, and I think when that happens, it's a really beautiful thing. Getting there can sometimes be hard, especially when you're meeting new people. But I think that's where we all want to be, in our relationships and in our personal lives, is to have that and have people who we can go to for that.
So how has like that feeling been evoked in you that you feel heard? Is it somebody looking you in the eye? Is it the
I
listening?
Yeah, to answer your question, I think to me the most um, there's several things, but the most clear like sign of that, or the most clear example, is when I can tell someone is listening, and when they ask questions. I think that's when I definitely feel heard. Is when the listening is not just passive; it's active, right? And vice versa. I enjoy doing that for people too.
So an active would
Listening,
be,
responding, asking questions, reacting, whatever. Yeah,
do you
yeah,
have
I
that
do.
in your
I
life?
definitely do, and I'm very grateful for it amongst a lot of my friends. That's why we're good friends, and vice versa, because I love what they do too. You know.
And as your parents, you know, we haven't done the best job.
I mean, I think you guys really
I
try, and with you especially, Mom. I enjoy our talks and like our car drives and stuff like that. In those situations, I always feel listened to, even if I am just continuing to talk and talk. And yeah, yeah,
Oh, I love it. I mean, when else did we have that amount of
yeah,
time and opportunity, Um, so feeling heard. So we need to feel heard to have a desire to want to find words to feelings to then express them
yeah,
to another. So feeling heard would be active listening, would be receiving active listening. And, you know, I don't know how much you want to talk about, but I know this last semester there was a lot of anxiety and worry and um, you know, with the level of classes that you were taking, you know, I don't know how you do it sometimes. And was it hard to express what you were feeling in your body, like just the anxiety and the tension,
yeah.
and what was that
It
like
was
for you?
definitely, well, I'll preface this with this, and that is that it was difficult, but I think the one thing I was reminded of quite a lot was that I wasn't alone, and that gave me a lot of hope. I mean, my roommate, for example, is like a great role model for me, because he's also a physics major, and he's also, he always also is having a hard time in his classes. He's also always struggling. So just seeing him with me there, in the same space, um, and then classmates from class or lab partners and stuff like that, and then also my friends back at home who I talk to, like Greg, for example. He's doing aerospace engineering, and we don't hear from him when he's in, like, during finals week for like a few weeks. We don't hear from him at all because he's busy, but him and I talk, and so it's like, I know I'm not alone. Does that make it easier to understand? Yes. Does it make it easier to express? No. Um, it's definitely, very different to acknowledge the fact that you are not the only one dealing with this and acknowledge, the extent or the depth of your struggles. But I think actually, overcoming them is an entirely different story, and it requires a very different set of skills, right? Um, so yeah. Uh,
But they're finding words to express their
and I am
anxiety.
too, but it's not. I mean,
Oh, oh no, no. What I'm trying to say is they found words to express their anxiety, which helped you feel connected and
yes,
understood. So
yeah,
I know you're trying. So just because one person has a moment where they're able to doesn't mean that we necessarily can or should do the same. But I'm trying to point out that the power of the ability to express what one is going through, it helps us, but it also helps the other
yeah,
person,
yeah,
is
yeah.
what I'm saying. You know what I mean? So that next time maybe it's easier for you. It's easier for us to do the same. How So did that create a sense of like safety in those friendships then, that you didn't feel alone, but you knew that they got it, in other words,
Yeah,
that they get it?
yeah. Um, I think it definitely created like a sense of having a safety net to fall back onto, or something to look forward to, at the end of the week or something like that. Um, just little things. It kind of, when you talk to people daily spontaneously, it's those little moments that are kind of what make it worth it. It's a reminder of you're not alone, but also it helps you understand it to a greater extent. Um, and yeah, it definitely does create like a I don't know if safety is the right word, but it creates a place you can retreat to if you're ever feeling vulnerable or overwhelmed or stressed out. Um, that doesn't mean, you know, braving the outside and climbing that mountain peak isn't any less difficult, but there is a base camp. Yeah.
And why is it so hard to put words to feelings? Um, and especially, I mean, what can we do better to help you feel heard so that you can put words to the feelings? Is it fear of like hurting hurting our feelings, or is it fear? Is it fear, or is it just there's so much going on inside that you can't capsulize it?
I I think for me, um, like personally, the latter is sometimes an issue. Um, Especially when I've gone a long time and I haven't talked about my feelings, then definitely it's like a lot to start to do that. But more so, and that doesn't apply to everyone though, and it only applies to me in certain situations. So sometimes, but more so, yeah, there's like a sense of fear or a sense of um, vulnerability, right? It's hard to do that, especially because you know so often we're encouraged not to be vulnerable. I mean, as a man, but also like socially and professionally, in so many contexts, there is no space for vulnerability. So many contexts, there's very little space
Right.
for it, right? And so often it's very easy to always stay away from it. And so when opportunities do present themselves uh, to being vulnerable, it's always it's always a little scary. It's an unexpected situation. It's out of your comfort zone, out of your bubble. You know, even if technically it's something you are comfortable with because you have it with your friends, or there are safe spaces for those sorts of things, you know, it's still difficult to get there.
Do you feel a lot of like the societal pressure, like that you can't
I
show
do. Yeah.
vulnerability still, like
It's
a
a
lot?
lot. I that's something I've been trying to work on within myself is um and this kind of connects to the idea of self-expression, is to be vulnerable regardless, and be open regardless, because I know that's who I am, and I know that's better for me, you know, as a person. Um, and you know, that requires deconstructing a lot of like ingrained behaviors or tendencies um, that have been pressed upon me since the day I was born, or since I, you know, for years, right? So yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, and then the different, parenting styles or personalities are kind of like augmented, and how dad is and then how I am, and it meaning the examples that you had before you were kind of extremes. um but for a man, um it the societal expectation that you can't show emotional or any vulnerability um is
yeah.
so massively high. And do you feel, so here I thought it had improved in your generation, um but you're saying that's
It's
like
yeah,
huge, but yeah, and within your friends, that close niche of people um provides kind of that safety
for
net to
sure.
you.
Yeah.
And I mean, how can I, as your mother, help with that vulnerability, because being vulnerable is like, it's brave. Brene Brown talks about the power of vulnerability, and that that's like, when you fall hard on your face, or when you're sobbing and crying, like that's the open door to everything magnificent. It's like cracking it open, and where you have the aha moments. And so, you know, I don't feel that I have provided enough space for you to be vulnerable with me. I believe that you feel that you can. But you know, how can we as your parents help you to feel safe when you are vulnerable
I don't
more?
know if I have the answer to that question. That's a complicated answer. Um, I I mean, for one, I'll say I know for a fact it's not entirely your guys' fault. Um, and you shouldn't blame yourself. Um, I think a lot of the capacity to be vulnerable is connected to one's sense of self and one's ability to express themselves, right? And the thing is,
Mhm.
for various reasons throughout high school, I looking back, I feel like I didn't really explore myself or explore how I could express myself as much as I could, or I could have. And the, multitude of reasons, the way life was at home, the pandemic, which literally put things on freeze for like almost 2 years. Um, and
Yeah.
then just so many various factors,
You mean like
in terms of
creatively,
my
just
identity, who I
the
was as a
isolation?
person. And I've done that a lot more now, and I've noticed that, I have a better idea of who I am as a person now, but also I I feel like I'm able to be more vulnerable because I understand how I want to express myself more so. Obviously, I'm not done. I have a long way to go still. I don't think that ever really goes away, where we're trying to learn who we are, how we want to present ourselves and be expressed. But um, I've definitely come a long way, especially from high school. So um, yeah, it's connected to self-expression, and for various reasons, my self-expression felt kind of like stunted for a long time. So
Mhm.
what I yeah, to wrap that up, do not blame yourself, not fully.
I don't necessarily blame myself for it all. I'm just saying, like, here we are today, and I mean,
Hmm.
one is just setting aside time, and it's not
No,
like,
no, yeah,
oh, let's go
yeah,
be vulnerable,
yeah,
Diego. Let's go. Um, but it's more like, okay, here's the offer. If you're struggling,
uh-huh,
I'm here, pick up the phone. And then another is I hope just you're observing my walking through vulnerability, and using it in a way to grow and strengthen, that it's been an example versus, how we get to when somebody is in a vulnerable position, most often society and others go to shaming. And so it stunts like being vulnerable more. So the more, that there's been witnessing of others, whether it's your friends or your parent, or me or whoever, being vulnerable, and with being able to be vulnerable, and then no judgment, no shaming, and then walking through it and seeing the growth or the realization, like, the more that we like openly do that, and I do believe I've done that as a mother,
yes,
more
and I
healthily
agree,
in
yes,
recent years. So, okay, and maybe are witnessing that in others, let alone parent child, um, and you, like you shared earlier, how your friends shared how they were in anxiety and they were stressed, and that you didn't feel alone. um it's human connection. I mean, that's really what provides more safe places to be
yeah,
vulnerable. Is that how you
yeah,
feel?
more than anything, absolutely.
Yeah. And do you think after, like, the after you witnessed your friends go through hard things, then you felt safer to do the same with them?
Um, I mean, I don't wish them to go through hard things, or when they tell me they've had this situation or encountered this, I'm not like, oh, I feel better about that. That's not, no.
No, that's not what I mean. I mean, and it doesn't need to be a hard thing. It could be doing something brave. I mean, when you sent that email to the professor, that was putting yourself in a quote unquote, you're to make a request and then wait for an answer is like, you know what I mean? It doesn't need to be a life crisis. It could be anything where it's, you know, being vulnerable is taking a walk on the street. So I'm trying to say, it's not like you feel good about somebody going through a hard time. But when we can find words for the experience of anxiety, for example, or whatever, it it it, it helps to create that bridge where then another can feel safe to express the same.
Yeah, yeah, that's true.
Right?
And I think definitely the the biggest thing is when one person is able to be vulnerable, then suddenly it sets that expectation or it creates that space. I think that's kind of what you're trying to get at, is that, when one person takes the first step, everyone else is easily able to follow for sure. And they feel safe to express their feelings. I feel safe to express my feelings when my friends do it. And um, and vice versa. If I'm the one to take the first step, then we have this space that's been created that's safe for everyone. Um, yeah.
And why is it so hard to find words to express ourselves? We talked earlier about, like, there's just so many different feelings, that you don't know which thing is most important to express, but in the moments that you're going through something in the present, um, putting words onto feelings, they don't have to be the perfect words. You can even say, hey, I don't know how to describe what I'm feeling right now, as a first step, to open up, um, to open a bridge where another person can say, do you mean that you're such and such? So I think it's important to mention that even when we can't find words to something that we're feeling in the moment, simply just
Yeah.
saying, I can't put it in words, but
Absolutely. Yeah.
right?
Just being with someone and being able to
Yeah.
verbalize something, and like you said, you don't have to perfectly express what you're feeling, not at all. Just being in that space alone where it's okay to talk about it, even if you don't know what you're going to say, I think is everything you need, for sure. Yeah.
That's awesome. And so that
Uh-huh.
that is what I mean by safe. That is what I mean by how home should feel. And as a physical place, but also within oneself, that you can sit and go and be in your own space and feel it all versus beat yourself up. It's just the same within oneself versus at a physical home. So, and that I see you like working on a lot. Um, you know, so one thing that makes it hard to find words for feelings is that we beat ourselves up. I see you do that a lot. And the mind goes, oh, you're just being weak, or it's like it's the attack thoughts that separate us from the
Yes.
truth of what we
Yeah.
are. Do you feel like that happens a lot when your your feelings come up and all of a sudden you're
Yeah.
stifled and it's
It,
just
it happens a lot.
all the
Yeah. All the
self-criticism?
time. Um, I think both involving my feelings and involving other aspects of my life. It might just be the sense of like perfectionism that I have within me, and that bleeds onto my feelings too. Um, but definitely, yeah, there's always like this criticism that's there. And I feel like that's almost like an internalized voice that started somewhere external. You know, it didn't start with us, right?
It's a,
Yeah.
well, say
I
more.
don't know. kind of connecting to the expectations thing that we were talking about earlier. Um, I think a lot of self-criticism comes from a lot of internalized uh, um, internalized, I don't know the word. I don't. Here we are, and unable to talk about our feelings. um, yeah, yeah,
Expectations? Because we identify with these societal expectations, and our mind is telling us we're not meeting
yeah,
it.
yeah. Especially when you're like on social media, or you know, online or whatever, or in social settings, um, or you don't know people, you don't know people, or like what's really behind them. It's easy to see the surface level of someone, you know,
Mm-hmm.
online or in a social setting where you don't know them, and you're like, oh, this is the person, this is everything that's going on. And then they look so great and well put together, and their life is perfect, and all these things are going perfectly well, and they're doing so much better than me or whatever. But so it's easy to internalize that,
Oh,
because that's so much of what we see. It's I mean,
right.
there's several reasons. There's like the social side of it and the societal side of it, and then there's also uh, um, like the business side of it, like or like the celebrity side of it. There are so many figures in society, and this has gotten better, especially with a lot of celebrities that I know nowadays who are kind of trying to deconstruct a lot of these norms. But you know, you want to look perfect and great all the time to sell a product or sell a way of living life. And that's a big thing. I mean, fashion is such a huge thing for my generation, and a lot of it is like really fast fashion, um, and really really quick trends that come and go. And a lot of that kind of connects to the idea of like, oh, I need this, I need to check off this list, and then I'm a member of society, a normal functioning person, right? And then I can go be a person, right? Or I'm allowed to participate. Um, and that sucks, right?
And I'm
It's like,
and if,
because the moment you don't do anything on that big list of things just right, you internalize all this criticism, all this like this pressure, you know. Um, yeah, and it comes out in a lot of ways, just because that's how so much of society is structured, even in ways you wouldn't even think about or consider.
yeah, just layered and layered and layered and layered, and our mind is just like running,
Yeah.
in robot mode with that. And it's there's a term called
Yes.
toxic positivity, and it's when people were struggling, in the Great Depression, people were saying, "Oh, look at that loser," and versus, the guy was losing his home, the family was on the streets, and the person would have said the day before, "Oh, I'm okay, we're okay," because they couldn't show the vulnerability, and then the suicide rates went up. But all of that societal outside pressures and layers then is ingrained, you're saying, in the mind, in your mind. And so that's where your mind, our minds go to first when you're sitting on your bed after your study or playing or gaming and study, and then and you're feeling anxious. There probably was moments where the first thing when you were feeling anxious was a personal criticism, and it it's ingrained from these societal trainings, of our mind,
Absolutely.
right? And that's where the whole message of we are infinite beings, whole, perfect, and complete, and like our true self. I know you don't like the word perfect, and I get it. But like in your soul spirit side, it is, and nothing's changed. And then the attack thoughts, that's what I mean by attack thoughts. It's like automatic. So how the hell are you supposed to find words to your feelings when the only words your mind is making are, you know, lazy, procrastinator, or, you know, failing, and like you can't even get to the heart of the matter unless we're aware of those attack thoughts. And it's not us, it's not you, it's not your true self. It's society's voice, and then it's your own mind.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
You feel? Do you think you've become more aware of when your mind is
I've
doing
tried
that?
to. It's hard sometimes because, you know, it's so instinctual. Sometimes you start to feel a certain way without even realizing that these are thoughts that you're having. And then you have the you know, the emotional response, but also the physiological response. And suddenly you realize when it's too late,
Right.
like, wow, I'm really tense. And like, I've already ruined like half of my day or whatever, right? And then, you know,
The thought,
it can even build
right.
upon itself. And that's the worst thing. It's like, then your attack thoughts attack your unawareness of your attack thoughts, right? You know what I mean? And it's like, how do I win?
Yeah.
You know, I've tried.
Right.
Yeah, it's sometimes it's hard, but yes, I feel like I've become more aware of them. And it's definitely, I think the most helpful way that I've been able um, to perceive it or stop it, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and let it pass is changing my perspective on the thoughts and what they are and why I have them. Um, and what I mean by that is often when we consider thoughts and what they are in our mind, we consider like this bundle of different things and ideas and concepts that we think represents us as a person, right? And we're like, okay, well, this is related to this, and this is part of me, my identity, and so is this and this, right? And so when we have random thoughts, we consider it a reflection of ourselves, right? And that's really not healthy, especially when you have those attack thoughts or negative thoughts, because then you internalize it immediately, right? Um, and one thing that's helped me is trying to rethink uh, the idea of a thought and really what it is, where this is the analogy I like to use for myself. Thoughts are more so not bundles that are attached to you, but like um, a radio channel or a wave that you tune into. And it's there and it passes through you and then it leaves. And you can tune out and you can tune to a different channel, right? And there's all these different frequencies. Um, yeah.
I love
I think
that. That's the Diego way of staying in
yes,
his home
that's the
within.
Diego certified way.
I love it. That's beautiful.
It's yeah,
That's
and
beautiful.
it's obviously easier said than done. I definitely don't live my life like that 24/7. I wish I did. Um, but I try to, and I have a goal, you know, which is that I actively try to strive towards. So, you know, means something.
Okay, so now I know what I need to get
Oh,
you in addition to the other stuff for Christmas. Symbolically, if there was a radio in front of you that you saw every morning, and you would say, I have the power to turn the volume up or off, to let it pass or not, and that's
that would be
that.
nice. Yeah. You don't have to get me a real radio.
My spot and my recovery meetings. That's what it is. It's the same thing. It's okay, today, creator, let me be aware of my thoughts, and let me be of service, but especially aware of attack thoughts on myself and others, because it's separating me from the love that they are and that I am and you are. And it's for you. Hold on. For you, you have your own way that you made to do it. That's beautiful. Okay. And when we can do that and be aware of the attack thoughts, then you can feel it, feel the feelings that is your heart talking, and maybe find words instead of beating ourselves up and then beating ourselves up for beating ourselves up. Thank you, Diego.
Of course. Yeah. It was nice to talk.
Thank you. I love you so much. And I can't wait to run downstairs and give you a hug. Okay. Thank you, everybody, for listening in, and whoever's going to listen to this after. Just for today, we can turn the volume down.
Change the channel.
And we have a choice. I'll change the channel in Diego's words when we have a thought that is not helping us at all.
Oh, you too.
I love you.